Okay, kids, so welcome to this week's final class on advanced spell stacking, or as we call it, spell twining in the Shades of Dominion. We're going to learn how to combine the various types of spells in the Shades of Dominion. And I think we have a good mix here to work with, so uh, most of your questions should be answered. So, when it comes to spell stacking, different types of spells. We're just going to pull up the rule book right here to give you the rundown as to what that looks like. And it's going to be this big blurb of text right about there. Spell twining. Spell twining is when you combine two different kinds of spells as you combine their templates. Twining can be as simple as combining an unchanneled spell with a channeled spell, and then choosing to spend extra shade to upgrade a channeled spell to an unchanneled spell. Now, when you make this choice, you are making a definite eternal choice. You are saying, I want this spell from the spell templates that I have to always be either channeled or unchanneled. This is spell creation, after all. It can be as complicated as twining a shade summon with another spell, which will determine under what conditions you can use that spell. Will it cast only once, or will you be able to use that shade summon to recast that spell repeatedly over your turn? Uh, these twining tables will help you determine how to combine your spells into the effects and shade summons you desire. Adding like templates, uh, whether it's unchanneled to unchanneled, channeled to channeled, whether it's aspect to aspect, shade summon to shade summon, uh, all of these incurs no extra cost. You will simply spend the library points you have to pay for the spell templates and to add their shade costs and effects as normal, which is basically what we did in the previous video earlier this week. These costs are in addition to the shade costs and library points costs of each individual template. So we're going to do a little exercise with some of the um, examples that we have. We're going to have our worksheet here. And this is just a little formula that I decided to type up on the fly. New spell template. The shade cost is spell template 1 plus template 2, and if applicable, any twining cost. The effect, you combine them. Again, how that's going to look like specifically for each particular spell is going to be dependent on what kind of spell you want it to be. And spell battery is the shade cost of the spell or 6, whichever is lower. A spell battery is our draw mechanic. It's the time or energy in which the shade mage takes to recharge their spells. Whether that's by study, whether it's just time, it's a very loosey goosey, and we let the shade mage determine how they role play their spell battery mechanic. So first up, these are some of the costs. Adding an aspect to a shade summon costs nothing. It literally costs nothing. You're just adding uh, a basic template that's already designed to uh, increase the power of a shade summon to a shade summon. So that's nothing. When you add a channeled to an unchanneled spell, this is varying on the type of spell you want. So, for example, if we have Lightning Bolt and we have Chorus of Woe, these are both cards you can find and stack together already. It's an odd combination, but again, you can do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to hypothetically add these two together. So for this spell type, we're going to say first that this is channeled. Okay? So according to this chart here, the additional cost is 0. So all we would do is we would add, since it's red, that would be destruction. So D for the D, of course, plus, and black is corruption. So D and C. with no extra twining cost. The effect would be deal 3 damage to any target, and whoa, all your shade summons get +1 power. And yes, these are spells that are in the book already. So this is a legit combination. You can deal 3 damage to any target. You can give you all of your shade summons +1 power. And the spell battery for this would be the shade cost, which is going to be 2, a destruction and a corruption. So it's just going to be 2+. Anytime you roll on for your spell battery, if this spell is exhausted and it's already been used, you roll a d6. If the result is 2 or higher, you can recharge the spell as an option. And that's how you combine a unchanneled and a channeled spell. This is an instant and a sorcery. This was unchanneled, this is channeled. Now, if you wanted to make this spell unchanneled, the only thing that would change is that this spell cost here would also increase to 2 to you, or 2 unstained shade, which is basically colorless, if you're familiar. And then the spell battery would be bumped up to 4+. Make sense? This spell would be much cheaper if you just kept it as channeled and as a half-action spell. That's the difference between channeled and unchanneled when it comes to combining or twining these two spells. Alright, so next up, we have unchanneled to shade summon or to aspect. So, let's take that one down. And let's do since we have the unchanneled here, let's do this one. I gotta move it. Actually, since that one's hidden, let's just do the other one. Kraken Hatchling. So, let's see here. Unchanneled to the shade summon or aspect. So, we're gonna take this away. Pull that up. Now, the type here is going to be a shade summon. You can't change that. Okay. So the shade cost for a one-time cast is just going to be destruction plus ether. The spell battery is going to be 2+, and the effect is going to be summon a power 0, toughness 4, wounds 1 shade summon. The wording might be a little different in the book. And deal 3 damage to any target. That's it. It's a one-time cast. You summon the Crackling, you deal 3 damage to another creature. Pretty basic, pretty simple. Now, let's say if we wanted to, with Shade Cost and Exhaust. So what that would look like is you would summon a Shade Summon, and this would change to with Exhaust, pay D. That's the effect. You would summon a creature that has an extra aspect with aspect. Pay 1 Destruction Shade and deal 3 damage to any target. And that would increase the cost to, again, 1U or 1 Unstained, which would simply change this cost to a 3+, because it's 3 shade, 1, 2, and 3. So you have a shade summon that's brought into the battlefield with an extra ability as an aspect that says when you exhaust this creature and you tap it, essentially, it deals 3 damage to any target. Pretty basic, pretty cool. But what if you don't want to exhaust it? What if you don't want to exhaust it at all? What if you just want to pay the cost indefinitely so that you have basically a turret, something that, preserves your spell slots. You don't have to recharge this spell anymore. You really just want to go to town. What does that cost you? It's going to cost you an extra Unstained Shade. So it's going to be a 2 Unstained Shade. It's still a Shade Summon. It's going to be cost 4. However, when you make this spell, it's going to include 1 extra library point. Point at creation. And that's it. That is how you would combine a unchanneled spell to a shade summon. And you could do the same thing with an aspect. It's the exact same process. It's the exact same cost and whatnot. Because what you're essentially doing is you're combining an unchanneled spell to another spell that's already determined to go on either another person, yourself, or another shade summon. So the costs are the same because it would in effect allow you to do the same thing. Now let's see if you want to add a channeled spell. So what we're going to do is we're going to do exactly what we were going to do before, adding a channeled spell to a shade summon or to an aspect. So let's get rid of these. Let's summon Chorus of Woe, which is a channeled spell, and Hyena Umbra. So we're going to combine these spells. And as said before, one-time cast with the Shade Summon or Aspect spell. So, and this is pretty interesting. These are combinations I haven't tried yet. They're all in the core rulebook, but because they come from diverse attributes that I haven't really thought of or combined, I'm learning about how these different combinations interplay with one another, and that's always interesting because there's the ones that are obvious and stick out to you, and then there are the ones that kind of slide under the radar. So we have a. This is going to be an aspect spell. do, do, do. And at first, we're just going to do the one on top of the other. So we're just going to do a Purity Shade from the Hyena Umbra. plus the Corruption Shade from the Chorus of Woe, and then it's going to be plus uh, the 1 Unstained. So it's going to be a cost of 3. And the effect is going to be hang on, let me look this up for a second. Pause. Alright, I was just boning up on how I worded spell aspects. So for this purity aspect, we're just going to have target Shade Summon, gets do +1 power and +1 toughness. And we call First Strike in this game initiative, because we're based like that. When this spell is cast, all of your shade summons and that's an interesting combination. That's actually pretty cool. Anyways, so the current spell Twining is going to be a 3+, a battery of 3+. It's going to cost 3 converted shade cost. There I am speaking in magic speak. So that's how you would combine. Oh my, I apologize. That's grossly unprofessional. Now that we're back on the right page for the PDF, as you can tell, I had to look some things up. I had to double check this. So because this is a one-time cast, it's going to cost 1 extra unstained. So it's going to be 3. And how would it change if we wanted it to just be an exhaust? Or shade cost plus exhaust. So how this language would change, so we would change this to 2. The spell battery would be a 4+, and this would change from target shade summon gets +1 power and toughness and initiative, except there would be a comma here. Initiative and exhaust, pay C or 1 corruption, and all of your shade summons get +1 power. Pretty cool. I like that. That's actually slightly worth it. So you have a creature who's continually capable of boosting up your other creatures. And it only costs 4 shade. Like that's pretty awesome. Look for a better deal in Magic the Gathering, I challenge you. Actually no, they probably have things that can do that are like mana cost 3 or less. But still, in terms of power, this is pretty awesome for it's basically an enchant creature. And that initiative, that first strike thing is a nice bonus too, especially in combat. So now this can only be buffed 1 more time, and all you would do is just remove this pay C and increase the spell battery by 1 and increase the Unstained Shade by 1. However, this also costs an extra library point at creation. And that's how you combine or spell twine the various different spell types into one another. I apologize. This went a little longer than I expected, but it's good to go over these things because some of the players they don't they don't live up to their privilege. They don't understand the power they possess. They don't see the options laid out before them. And next week we will go over artifacts. And artifacts are fun in this game because what you're able to do with artifacts is essentially um, you can enchant them and you can turn them into spell templates. You can have artifacts or weapons ready to go at a moment's notice, even though you're not carrying them on your person. This is also how Shade Mages answer the ammunition question or the encumbrance question. Why the hell would I uh, keep track of ammunition for someone who can literally materialize it at a whim or on a fancy? And yes, a Shade Mage can do that. You can imprint or make a spell template out of an artifact, and you can cast it at any time or as a channeled spell. So your bunches of ammunition that are, usually in bulk for fantasy roleplay anyway, yeah, you're going to be able to pay one unstained shade, something pathetic and small, and just be able to constantly refresh your ammunition by paying shade. It's not a big deal. So we'll be going over artifacts and how you can enchant those and turn those into spell templates and how you can even do that at character creation. And I will show you a very, very nifty secret combination, a hidden shade summon that can be treated as an aspect spell when it comes to enchanting your weapons. So we'll go over that next week, and I hope to see you there on Monday. As always, everyone, proud of you. Glad that you're here. Like and share the video, and go throw some shade. Bye bye, everyone.